Hello, my name is Josh Anthony with the Objective Reporter, and today I will be interviewing Chairwoman Lisa Clancy of the St. Louis County Council. Chairwoman Clancy, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, good afternoon. I am Lisa Clancy. I am the chairwoman of the St. Louis County Council and also the councilwoman for the 5th District of St. Louis County. I live in Maplewood and I represent about 150 to 175,000 or so residents of the central eastern part of St. Louis County in 16 different municipalities and a tiny portion of unincorporated St. Louis County.
Thank you. Now, first question, we're kind of starting with COVID-19. Recently, we've seen many schools in the St. Louis area give parents the option of sending their kids back to school or keeping them at home for distance learning. Do you think that this is the best path for schools to take? And in your opinion, which is the better option?
Well, I am alarmed and concerned about the trend that we are seeing in positive COVID cases in the region. We are clearly not out of the woods. In fact, it seems like we are reversing course, and that requires us to continue to make some really tough decisions here in St. Louis County and at the local level in order to keep everyone safe and healthy and to stem the spread of coronavirus. And so our local school boards and other officials have had to make some really tough decisions about the upcoming school year. I do support the schools that have decided to offer a virtual option, including my own school district, Maplewood Richmond Heights. I have a student in the Maplewood Richmond Heights program. My son is 3 years old, and they announced last week that they're going to be going full virtual. And I think that that is a good decision for them to make right now. Of course, though, we also have to be mindful of the different supports that different families are going to need in order to make that work. And so that's why I'm excited that in St. Louis County, we've put some of our CARES Act money into technology to make sure that every household that needs access to the internet in order to do the virtual program has it. And also other supports that are intended to help parents with childcare and housing and other things that we need, food, to make sure that families have what they need throughout this pandemic, and especially with the considerations due to changes in schooling.
Thank you. Now, kind of moving on to another current issue. As we've seen, movements devoted to social activism, like the Black Lives Matter movement, have called for big changes to law enforcement and in some cases to defund the police entirely. Do you think that any changes should be made to the law enforcement system? And if so, what do you think they should be?
Yeah, we are in the midst of another civil rights movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. And I am a policymaker, but there have been times, including recently, where I've stood side by side with other residents here of St. Louis County and in the city and in other parts of our region who have called for changes in our police department and in law enforcement practices in general. One of the things that I look to provide direction and guidance on the changes that need to be made here in St. Louis County are the Ferguson Commission report. So the Ferguson Commission report came out with 189 recommendations of things that needed to be changed in St. Louis, but also statewide in order for this region to be more racially equitable. And the definition of racial equity that I use is when outcomes are not predicted by race. And many of those recommendations that the commission made had to do with changes in law enforcement, changes related to use of force policy, related to responding to protesters and demonstrators, related to training to make sure that we have the best trained police department that is also culturally responsive and can respond to the various needs of citizens here in St. Louis County. Those are things that we have a lot of work to do still, but one of the things that is new now are the recommendations about defunding the police. And I am listening closely to what people are saying about the direction that we need to point our budgets towards, for example, in order to invest upstream into things that prevent crime from happening in the first place. My background as a social worker, I have a lot of interest in what we can do to prevent crime. And that essentially will make it such that police officers have less to respond to and the community will be safer. So I'm really interested in recommendations to that end. And I don't hear it I don't hear the calls to defund the police so much as zeroing out a police budget and eliminating the police department, although I think there are those who are interested in some of those big questions. I hear it about balancing a budget and, again, making investments that are going to prevent crime from happening in the first place.
Thank you. Now, moving on, this past week we saw a tragic shooting at the St. Louis Galleria Mall in which one person was unfortunately killed. Seeing as this occurred in an area that you represent, what are your plans to reduce violent crime in your district in the future?
Well, one of the things that, first of all, I was, troubled to hear about the violence that happened last week at the Galleria, as I am troubled to hear about the continuing gun violence in our region. We clearly have um, some a lot of work to do, a lot of policy work to do to prevent these things from happening, to continue to address community needs, to make sure that we are getting guns off the streets and out of the hands of people who are going to use them as weapons. And I was devastated to hear about this incident last week at the Galleria. And one of the things that was really striking to me, though, about this incident was that it involved young people. I believe the perpetrator, the gunman, was 18 years old. I believe the victim wasn't that much older, or older. I don't know all the details, but older than that. And one of the things that, I mean, that's tragedy on so many levels. Not only is someone dead, but also we have someone whose life is also going to be forever changed. And particularly when it comes to addressing crime with young people in St. Louis, we have some capacity and infrastructure to help provide some policy recommendations for that. So one of the groups that I try to speak with regularly and that I also look to for guidance is the Violence Prevention Commission, that has a piece of it that is dedicated to addressing youth violence, the Youth Violence Prevention Commission. And they have a lot of recommendations about investments that need to be made in order to keep young people from engaging in criminal activity. And those are, again, upstream investments, like making sure that youth have jobs to go to and have other productive activities to do, educational offerings, for example, so that they don't succumb to pressures to engage in activities that are going to cause trouble and eventually turn violent and even take people's lives. So those are the kinds of solutions that I'm interested in. And I also know that there's some things, statewide and federally, that we need to work on too, related to common sense gun safety. There's not much we can do at the local level related to that. There are some things that we can do, but we're really hamstrung by our state and by our federal government. But we need some policy change there to make guns harder to get and out of the hands of people that are going to use them as weapons.
Thank you. Now, moving on to the last question. In the past, you've taken a position that supported the expansion of government spending. If government spending were to be expanded in St. Louis, how would you use it to address some of the major issues in your district and St. Louis County overall?
Well, we don't expand government spending without expanding our revenue here in St. Louis County. Without an influx of new revenue in St. Louis County, which could look like a lot of things. It could look like, services and fees related to services that county government provides. It could also look like tax money, additional tax money. There is no expanding government spending. One thing that I am really interested in, that I think has only been underscored by the pandemic, is expanding childcare access and quality for families in our region. I mean, as a mom of a 3-year-old, that's something that's very real to me as well. And I am interested in having a dialogue in the coming weeks with my colleagues on the council and also with members of our community about putting some money and some additional investment into ensuring that every young person age 0 to 5 in St. Louis County has the opportunity to attend a high quality early childhood education program. So I'm interested in using government resources and putting them in places in our budget that are going to make a real difference for families and for vulnerable communities in St. Louis County. But again, we need more revenue. We need more money to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on with us, Chairwoman Clancy. We wish you luck in your upcoming election.
Thank you, and best of luck to you all too. I've been really impressed to read about what you all are working on, and I wish you the best as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.